how do I make a rectangle with only 3 sides? Well, you don't. That's a triangle. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. It's Sunday night, and of course we have Phobies viewer games. We're going to be looking at regular games, although there might be a tournament game snuck in there somewhere. I don't know. I didn't look at the list ahead of time. I just know we have a bunch of games. I was cleaning it up, as one might. Couple points of note. Of course, I have to let everybody know that I'm part of the content affiliate program. The Phobies team gives me coffee for producing Phobies content. You'll probably see the total as we go through. Other point of note, got to turn the volume down. Another point of note, I did put a fan on, so it's like behind my setup and blowing towards me because you've probably seen, like, I've had a few people, Karst included, who's like, you seem, I think they literally said you seem bored watching some of the games, and that's not the case. It is just literally, and I've talked about this before, I am exhausted typically on Sundays. Like, I think the entire week catches up with me on Sunday because I actually get to sleep in a little bit on the weekend, and then my body's recuperating and blah blah blah, you know, getting old, that sort of thing. But by Sunday evening I'm usually exhausted. Also, because I stream where I physically stream in my house, it does tend to it just gets kind of gross down here. Like, I've talked about the humidity and the temperature before, so I decided to finally set up a fan. Why does anyone give a shit about that? Because it is blowing directly at me and therefore directly at the mic, and hopefully it's not terrible. If it is, please let me know in the comments or in Discord. I've mentioned it on the other streams this weekend when I've had it set up, and I'm hoping that it doesn't seem like I haven't noticed it when I've tested recordings and stuff, but if other people are hearing things, you know, if you hear weird white noise in the background, that's what it is. I'll try and readjust it if it's a problem, but like I said, I didn't notice it, but maybe I just didn't notice it. Either way, we're going to get into it. So what's good, chat? How's everybody doing out there? The camera got moved because I also was working on other stuff. Notably, I was re-thermal pasting my CPU, which I hate computers. I hate working on them. It annoys the shit out of me, and it was a colossal pain in the nuts because just the way my motherboard and case is, like, I didn't map this out. Like, I like the case that I have, and I like the way it's set up, but because of the way it's set up, like, the CPU, like, cooler, the fan doesn't properly screw into the motherboard the way I would have expected because it is vertical. I mean, I guess they all are, but like the plate that it anchors into is not, basically it just fell off while I was trying to do this. So I'm juggling the CPU and the fan, trying to hold in place while I'm getting this other thing and trying to do it. And like, I need 4 hands, and it was just a pain in the nuts. So I'm annoyed. Hopefully my PC, like, the whole reason is because it was running very, very hot, and I thought it needed to be repasted. It was about the time, and we'll see. Anyway, enough complaining. Let's get into this game. All right, we're leading it off with, speaking of painful fates, we have painful fate. All right. Charon is one of the coolest phobies in the game, alongside with Unbearable, Goon, and Maestro. Name other ones and tell me if my opinions are bad or not. I guess that it's funny. I got into a debate about a totally unrelated subject, and we're trying to, like, I tried to use, when I'm having a like, turn 1 Charon. All right, you're cooking too much, Painful Fate. You're cooking too much. I try to be very precise. Hold on, is my mic working? Okay, I had a panic attack for a second that my mic wasn't working. So what was it? It was Charon, Unbearable, Goon, and Maestro. All right. So I'm in a debate with Karst and Atona. Everybody here probably knows Karst. Everybody watching this video. Atona's probably not known to you. He's a regular on my streams, come from card gaming background, but whatever. I try to be precise with my terminology with debates, especially online, because it is very difficult to conduct, like, a reason, like, when I'm discussing things with them, and we happen to disagree on this particular subject, like, and I'm not going to get into the specifics because nobody cares about that part. That's not the important part. The confusing thing is, like, defining what everybody means by certain things, because I've found a lot of the time that, like, people really don't disagree. They just disagree about the verbiage being used, and therefore, what the fuck is bad guy doing? Dude, this is terrible. All right, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so once you get, like, things out of the way of explaining, like, well, this is what I mean by this. Is this what you mean by that? And then you realize, hey, we're saying the same thing, we're just saying it different ways, because we've all probably thought about these things a lot, but haven't necessarily articulated it to another person. Why does any of that preface matter? Because if you're asking me what the coolest phobies are and how cool the ones you suggested are, we got to decide what are the criteria. I think those phobies are cool. There really aren't very many phobies, in my opinion, that are quote-unquote uncool. Like, I think you can make a pretty valid argument as to why squiggles is uncool. But I think that's part of the endearing factor, is squiggles. Like, if somebody asks me, what's your favorite phobie, what's the coolest phobie, what's the whatever's phobie, unless it's what is the most disgusting and weirdest phobie, it's probably not going to be squiggles, right? Like, no one's putting squiggles at the top of their list. However, I do think Charon's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of cool things about him. I don't know if I'd put him as the coolest phobie in the sense of, like, he's not like the most badass phobie, I guess. That's kind of the criteria I would think of when somebody says coolest thing. Unbearable, Maestro, and what was the other one? Goon. Goon is definitely up there. Goon is sick. I really like Unbearable. We were actually talking about him last week. I'm pretty sure it was last week. I still always am partial to Noxious. I'm still waiting for the undead dinosaur phobie. We do have our Halloween update coming up. Typically, like traditionally, those have had higher quantities of undeads. So I'm holding out hope, crossing my fingers there. We'll have to see. I do like the usage of Charon here. Bad guy, like, sunk a lot of resources into trying to kill this Charon, failed, and then went whoopsie, more or less. But I think you really, like, and this is going back to the discussion I'm having with Karst and Atona, is just like, well, what are we defining as thing? And then you can decide, like, because I just, Waffalo at a bad guy? It's a bold move there. Like, I have a video going up tomorrow with my personal vibes-based card game tier list, and Phobies is not a card game, despite what... I don't even know if it still said... We've said this before, like, does it even say that's a card game on the store description anymore? I know it did at one point. It said it was a card game in a few different areas, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't say it there anymore. I don't know. Or if it does, it's in, like, the fine print on, like, the longer description or something. But, like, if you're going to create a tier list of things, whether it's coolest phobie, best phobie, whatever, you need to define what the criteria is. And if you say something like coolest, that's going to mean different things to different people. It's kind of like Pokemon. Every Pokemon is someone's favorite. Somebody out there will die for that Pokemon. They will give up their life. They will shuffle off this mortal coil in order to preserve that Pokemon. Whatever one, no matter how fucking stupid it could be, the damn ice cream one. There will be someone that is like, they're looking up some voodoo ritual to ensure that that Pokemon is preserved. Tell me bad guy never even gets a Waffalo connection. That would be kind of hilarious. So you could have done a challenge play here. I don't think it would have mattered. Yeah, it probably wouldn't have mattered. But, like, you could challenge play the Paschetti to then get a shot on Waffalo. But then you wouldn't have been able to connect a snowball with the, whatever the hell was up here above the Waffalo that I already forgot. My head hurts. So bad guy can get a Waffalo connection here. Excuse me. Apparently we're going to go Kerbloom. What? That can't be right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think bad guy's cooked anyway, but like not taking somebody right now feels extra special wrong. You do get the double Kerbloom hit, but like, I don't know. That doesn't seem right. So yeah, if I had to choose one, I would probably say Noxious. Sports the random thoughts colors. I think Pterodactyl's really cool. I always thought he was just like a very interesting phobie. I think Buffalo Will is cool. Most of the undead are pretty cool to me. Most of the undead phobies are pretty cool to me. Barzilla's pretty cool. I'm trying to think of other ones. Just had a weird thought. In your tier list, is there any consideration of format? Okay, so I did think about that. I did not really factor it in, and that's why it heavily went to vibes. Because I wasn't in the context of Commander, although that's a very good example. Also, I wasn't... Obviously, I had to start the stream, so I wasn't dipping the other part of the conversation. I probably won't respond tonight, because after the streams, I go, like, basically go right to bed, because I'm tired, usually. I was just talking about that. But that's the problem with comparing, like... My go-to example in the video that's coming out tomorrow is Hand of the Gods is the Smite card game. And it was very much actually, like, it was a tactical card game. Like, you put guys on the board and then physically move them around, not with additional cards, but, like, you cast a guy onto the board, kind of like Phobies. Just you had a deck. That's neither here nor there for it, but... how do you compare that game, which I don't think even made it into beta, versus Magic the Gathering, which has dozens, plural, of formats, let alone quantity of cards and everything else? So, like, I kind of lumped everything together, because, like, even WoW, I have a tier 0. GG. Well done, painfulFate. I know we started to get sidetracked there, but GG. Like, even WoW, I typically on the tier list would break it into the Upper Deck era and the Cryptozoic era. And I think the latter is a dramatically worse game than the former. Now, I still think the latter is better than Magic, but it's like Magic fixed. As compared to, you could look at WoW as a whole as Magic fixed, because it kind of is. But the reality is that the game is much more than that because of it's more than the sum of the parts. Like, the combination of all the little pieces means that it ends up being a significantly better game than Magic to me. I think if you make a game where you're scooting guys around on the board, you made a board game and it doesn't enter the card game discussion. Well, what if you have a deck? So, like, in all seriousness, like, imagine Phobies. Now, you've seen enough Phobies from hanging out. Like, even if you don't play it or play it anymore. I don't remember if you ever started. Yeah, Upper Deck WoW is 100% full stop, not close. Like, I was going to make another tier above tier 0, but I'm like, whatever. At a certain point, we're just being silly. And I also just, like, didn't have enough real estate to physically make it and have it be legible. But, like, say Phobies had a deck, and I'm not saying Phobies should, for you Phobies people, believe me, Phobies should not have a deck. But let's say Phobies had a deck of cards, and then you had an opening hand, and, like, whatever the mechanics were for how many you draw a turn, how many extra cards you see, how different things play out. Or, like, if you had chess, and there was a deck, but you would draw and then play things to the board. My favorite era of Magic is 20 years ago. It's funny because, like, your favorite era of Magic, or at least I understand it, is the one that I'm using as the prime example of why instants don't matter. Whereas I don't know what Karst's frame of reference is. Board games can have decks. They can. But your primary, like, how do you define a card game then? Like, for example, the Alien vs. Predator card game, which has come up recently a lot, well, mostly because of me. So it was a deck of cards, but you built a board and you moved your guys around the board. So it's a board game that you construct the board over the course of the card game. Like, are all card games board games, or all, you get what I'm trying to figure out? Like, it's not, I don't think, oh shit, I accidentally clicked out of this. We're going to load up the next game while we're discussing this. Scorpio, you didn't, god damn it, did you not? You're playing against the Michelin Man, and you didn't favorite. Holy shit, this is from back in July? Bro, this game is dead. What are we doing? Alright, I'm going to call this one dead, because there's no way it's on your profile, and you only have 2 games favorited. Not including the other one. Oh, wait, no. I take it back. Okay, you submitted like 12 games, and only some of them are favorite. What is going on? All right, we're just going with this one. Sorry, Scorpio. All right, we got ScorpioAstro. No notes. Scorpio submitted like 30 games. Some of them are favorited. Some of them are not. We're just going to see. We got Bad Guy with a little freaking leprechaun avatar. We also have an ongoing discussion, and I don't know if Otona responded. Let me see. There's a card game that is dudes on a board, and I forget the name of it. It has like a billion faction. You play guys next to walls for some reason, then they move around. Is it the Gears of War card game? Because you do actually put the cover up in that game. Card game with dudes on a board, has a million factions, and you play guys next to walls, and then they move around. I don't know, honestly, God, I don't know if you're trolling me, and this is a game I played, and just you're trying to come up with a funny description of it, or like you legitimately cannot remember the name of the game. This is gonna bug me. It was kind of popular when board game players would absolutely hate it and thought the minis would have felt less fiddly. So I will say, from trying to design games where the cards move, because I want there to be like a traveling aspect to the games that I'm trying to create, because it's supposed to be retelling a book series. So I want it to be like, oh, well, I moved from location A to location B because that's what happened in the story. Kind of like Lord of the Rings. It is cumbersome to be like, well, what if this guy gets loaded up with like 3 pieces of armor and a weapon or something? And it's like, now I have to shuffle or slide this whole conglomeration of cards across the board. It's just kind of annoying. Why is the map like cockeyed right now? Why did it not? Am I crazy? Doesn't it always like try to recenter? Because I remember fighting that before when I was trying to get it to like stay. Why did the camera not recenter here? I don't know, chat. I suddenly have like a really bad headache. It's not really bad. I just have it's a minor headache. I say really bad, but it's not really bad. Bad guy just throwing away Flopsy? I don't think that was Cottontail. If you find this game, Atona, I want to know what game it is, because I'm very curious now. Speaking of Unbearable, I do love Unbearable. Although, Unbearable just feels like... Like, it's just always outclassed by Hevo, right? The mobility just trumps it. Card with dudes on a board and walls. Dude, what is it with the primate number 9? Is everybody trolling me? Somebody asked about the primate, like, last week or the week before. Maybe even longer ago. It feels recent, but somebody put a primate out. And I'm like, why did they put a primate on the board? And then there were a bunch of people in the YouTube comments like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. This is why primate, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. He's just a worse cassowary. I think I have a way to figure out the game. Give me a few minutes. Is it Google? If you come back and say that you asked AI, I might turn the stream off. I won't turn the stream off. I'll come up with I will time you out. That's what I'll do. If you come back and tell me that you used AI, I will time you out. All right, we got a foul. I know he's not going to use AI because I think Tona hates it as much as everyone else does, maybe more. It'd be very funny, though. Don't mind me shuffling cards, speaking of cards. I don't think Google would help because I don't know how to ask in a way that narrows it down. It doesn't matter because if you Google something now, it's just going to be ad results anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm waiting for, like, the better search engine to exist. But, like, I don't think it ever will in the modern landscape because Google will just buy said company. Like, I don't know how there hasn't been an antitrust suit against Google just from a search engine perspective because, like, what were the other ones? It was, like, DuckDuckGo and Ask Jeeves and, like, a bunch of other shit. And I'm pretty sure they are just, like, front ends on top of Google or something like that, where, like, Google feeds them data or some shit, where it's just like, why do you exist? Or, like, DuckDuckGo was supposed to be the privacy-based one or something, and then it turned out they were selling all the data anyway, so it's like, it doesn't matter. If you're going to go after Microsoft, you know, they did, like, this was a thing. They went after Microsoft years ago because they packaged Internet Explorer and it was the default browser with Windows installations. Like, oh, well, you are now monopolizing, even though they didn't, like, force you to use Internet Explorer. It was, like, a lower information person who was unaware that they had alternatives would now be trapped in that ecosystem. Or at least that was the argument. At least as I understand it. I'm not a lawyer. Why is there nothing comparable for Google? What else are you going to do if you wanted to search something online? You Google it. It is a verb. That's how ubiquitous it is. I would say sorry, Scorpio, but you didn't favor most of your games, and you didn't put in any notes. So, you have no excuse. You have no sympathy. Although we're probably going to come back and do a bunch of Scorpio games anyway, because there's like a billion. I have no idea how to pronounce this person's name. I mean, I do, and I don't at the same time. Oh, Sparky Avatar? Oh, no, you didn't favorite your games. Come on, people. Dude, and this is from a few days ago. Oh, no, this should be on your profile. This person doesn't appear to play extremely frequently. All right, I believe Chicken Little here, chickenraigo, Regio. I don't know how to say the second half of your name. I'm just gonna call you Chicken. Chicken Man here. Our hero, I'm pretty sure new to viewer games, because I feel like I'd remember this name, but the Sparky Avatar is pretty dope. We don't see that very often. Hold on, getting the notes. My latest new favorite phobie, Boo Fairy, saved my heart from the Cerberus. My opponent didn't like my last surprise attack. Well, it's perfect information in Phobies. Well, I guess it isn't technically perfect information because you don't know their collection, but it's mostly perfect information. So near perfect information. Most attacks shouldn't be a surprise. It's kind of like Juzz. But anyway, I can tell you it isn't Berserk. Berserk has a board, but it's actually just lanes. I don't know that game, so that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm still very curious about this game. I want to know what this game is. I'm telling you, every time I see this map and somebody plops a ground-based phobie onto the conveyor tile, regardless of whether there is a flyer right behind them, I have a mini heart attack every freaking time. Every time they set foot on that conveyor belt, it's like, whoops! I can hear the Mario, whoa, like falling into a pit noise every time in my head. All right, we're getting some quick pickups. Shorter games tonight. I don't want to jinx it. I'm telling you, it goes in waves like this, where we'll have a night where it's like last week, where every game is 50 turns, and then there's... I would love to hear from the devs if Boo Fairy was based off of Real Monsters. I don't know the name of the monster. We had to have talked about this, probably every time Boo Fairy comes out. So is Boo Fairy hairy? Like when Boo Fairy pulls its skin back or whatever, is that like, is it skin? Is it fur? We'll see if Boo Fairy actually uses its ability and we can maybe pause it. Fair amount of pressure on this heart, all things considered. Bad guy, I mean, honestly, this is a kind of a scary push between the Cerberus itself and, of course, the Miss Moffat threatening an easy kill one way or the other. Either you're going to end up in a pit with mispositioning, or you're going to end up with getting pulled into Cerberus range. Down goes Zito. This is a dead Hevo, right? Did you get the raid pickup? The raid pickup is pretty good. Got the counter Moffat. Panic points in favor of our hero. First time this game? I think it's first time. Oh, don't even need the Tooth Fairy to get the kill. Or the, yeah, Tooth Fairy. Wait. Just realized, Tooth Fairy and Boo Fairy. How many fairies do we have in the game? Is it just those two? Ironically, the bot just posted about the card game tier list. So it looks to be all one piece rather than like hairs. So I think that the Boo Fairy thing is, it's actually pulling back skin that's going all the way to the bone. It'd be like peeling your face off and doing like the Ghost Rider penance stare or something, I guess. Or Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat Collection is, I'm actually kind of excited about that, chat. I'm absolutely getting it. I just hope that, like, the online is competent. Because I would like to be able to, play, like, Mortal Kombat 2 online. That would be sick. $636 damage out of that Boo Fairy. What is the... It's actually kind of a cool picture here. Like, is this the thumbnail? Potentially? I don't know. I'll write it down just in case. But we got 636 damage reduction. How convenient. I should have known that before clicking on it, but whatever. Alright, what's the surprise attack we're talking about here? 5 keys to 5 keys. Ugh. I gotta record one of the other tournament games that I meant to do. I tried to do it earlier this week. I did one. And by this week, I mean last week. Although technically, yeah, last week. Depending on your views of Sunday or Monday being the first day of the week. I recorded one. I wanted to do 2. I couldn't find the other one. And somebody told me where it was, so I'm going to have to go check that out. Is Karst the one pinging me in Discord? No, it's in a different one. Alright. I mean, you... Oh, Summoner Wars! I know of that game. I always wanted to try it. So why did that even come up? GG there, chicken. GG! Whoop. Not too quick. So what would... There's a card game that's dudes on a board is the name of this billion factions play next. Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's basically a minis game. I don't remember if there's dice for that, for Summoner Wars. I don't know if I agree with your argument that combo makes it a deeper game. I mean, using WoW as an example, combo did not really exist. At least, like, from Drums of War, I started playing at the end of Illidan Block, like whatever the last set was. I always confuse which one was the last one. But really, I started playing, like, that set was already released, and Drums of War was going to release, like, 2 weeks after I started playing. So we'll say Drums of War. Through the Cryptozoic era, there were very, very few combo decks, if any, and the ones that were there were problematic. So, like, I don't think WoW was made deeper due to the potential of combo decks. I don't know if it's possible. Like, let's say combo exists, and we're talking a totally asynchronous game. You do not interact on your opponent's turn. Maybe you have secrets. You know, like Hearthstone-style secrets. That's not really the crux of this point. Is hand disruption sufficient? So, like, say we still have duress and coercion and stuff like that. And a combination of that and triggered abilities on creatures or artifacts or whatever. Is that sufficient to disrupt and still have meaningful combo? And question 1A is the game better for having combo, or should we just skip that whole piece and therefore just, like, refocus those cards? And it's just like, this is an extra layer of complexity that is not adding meaningful depth. I think it adds depth in deck building, but I don't personally place a lot of value on deck building, which is a larger discussion, but... Oh, excuse me. All right, here we are. We've got Jeremy, our hero. All right, I had to find the notes for a second. Dark Manor Swarm Aggro versus everyone's favorite man in yellow. Misanthrope's sacrifice was not in vain. Did they ever explain, like, is their name based after the Lovecraft story? Like the king in yellow? Or is he's the man in yellow? I think we need to define what meaningful depth is. That was, I don't know if you were here when I started out the stream, but yes, that is the definition, not argument, but like the definition part of the discussion I think is important. Because like, this goes back to what we were talking about in Discord, and I didn't read the larger thing you posted, but I don't feel that waiting until the end of my opponent, like my opponent's end step, is a meaningful decision. Because you always do that. So, like, this is why I was posting that one example, and I don't know if people responded, but, like, I'm pausing it because this is going to be a larger point. If it's my 4 resource turn, and I could either play... Here, we'll even do this. Like, if it's my 4 resource turn, and I could play a 4 resource card, or I could play 2... like a 2 resource card and then a 2 cost card that interacts with my opponent somehow, like a removal, a counterspell, or whatever. And in this case, counterspells could be secrets, they could be whatever, like that's not the important part. I don't want to get bogged down into the specifics because that's going to be driven by card decisions, which I think changes the scope of the discussion, where if it's like a specific card and specific formats, that's going to change what your response is. So like if I always say, well, you always wait until the end step, and you're like, haha, well, I got you. Well, with this one card, you actually do it here. Well, that doesn't change, and I win, air quotes, because you're changing when you do the thing, but you're not changing that you would do the thing at different times. You're changing, like, instead of end step, I cast it during declare attackers. Okay? Well, there's still always an optimal time, and you will always do it there. Where I'm going with this is if you have the 4 resource versus 2 and 2, if the correct decision is to play the 4 resource card, you just play the 4 resource card. If the correct decision is to play 2 and 2, we're again only changing when the thing happens, but not that you are doing the thing. Like, if the 2 and 2 is better than 4, you will always do 2 and 2, whether you have sorcery-based stuff or not. Now, whether you have sorcery-based stuff versus instant, based on the game, will then mean that you have the opportunity to get a larger gain. But that goes back to the point of, like, we need to decide what is an important decision. And if in that game, it is always better to shoot for the higher risk reward, you will always shoot for the higher risk reward, and there's no real decision being made. Because we quickly run into an issue where more viable options create more considerations, which makes for more chat is scrolling for more decision-making in the deck-building process. In that regard, combo does add depth. I agree there. Like, if you have more things that you have to account for, you have to make a decision. But I don't think that... I think there is a zero-sum game when it comes to deck-building and gameplay, which is a different discussion. Combo doesn't add onboard depth necessarily and may not make complex game states. However, if we only care about the complexity of game state, then simply making everything both interactive on board does that. Why even have removal when playing dudes makes more complex game states? I don't think having more dudes makes more complex game states, and I think it becomes reductive if you don't introduce removal, because there is only one axis of interaction, and it will be whoever goes first wins, or whoever has bigger guys, like however the math works out. See, I think that having more options does not inherently mean more decisions. And I know that sounds contradictory. And the reason for that I say that is if you do not have to choose between A and B, and I think by having the instant, because like getting their 4 resource play because they tapped out is a massive tempo boost, right? So you playing a 2 on resource 4 is bad until you consider, well, I killed their 4 and blanked their turn and still advanced a guy. Then it's really good. Is that a thing that you have to learn and a skill? Absolutely. But it stops there. You will always do that because that is always better. Like, whatever the relationship for that matchup is. And that's why I don't think that it's a meaningful decision. Whereas if you are required to decide between, do I kill their 3-drop because they haven't played their 4 resource yet? You know, like you resourced up to 4. You now decide between 2 and 2 and 4. They have a 3-drop. Do I kill their 3-drop and only advance my 2? Or do I play my 4? Because you are being taxed from a decision point there, I think that is more meaningful than the former. So the axis of combo exists on maybe linear and create linear games, but by simply existing, they create more complex deck building. I think that is a meaningful deck building decision, but that's where it comes into, like, are we talking about meaningful gameplay decisions? Because I think and I really do believe, and this is a working theory, that it is zero sum when it comes to deck building and gameplay. The more emphasis you put on the deck building, the less emphasis the game is going to have on the tactical, the actual gameplay, because you can't. You can't have both. Like, if you build the perfect deck, we've talked about this before, card games want to be non-interactive. I don't want what you're doing to ever mess with me, and I want to execute my game plan and win. If I'm able to do that because I built the perfect deck, there are no decisions in the game. Zero. Now, you can go to the other extreme where if you take away all the deck building, you could also end up with no meaningful gameplay decisions because you have like a shit sealed deck or something. But I think that there is, maybe zero sum isn't the right way to put it, but like there is a relationship that as deck building decisions increase, in-game decisions decrease, and vice versa. Anyway, we'll keep going, but getting back to this. Where were we? Jeremy beating up on Man in Yellow. Yeah, I am curious if Man in Yellow has ever said whether their name is inspired by the... it's not a Cthulhu story, because the King in Yellow is its own story, and he's his own monster, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I gotta go back to the notes. What are we looking for in this game? I got so sidetracked. Dark Manor Swarm aggro. Okay. I mean, we're just setting up Sentinels fighting each other. It is Sentinels backed up with, like, a ton of weenies on either side. But... it's a conundrum. I would think I would need to think about how deck building and actual gameplay interact with each other. You may be right, and I might like building decks more than dudes on a board. Well, I mean, think about drafting. Drafting is its own fun. Now, you could have fun playing the game with the drafted decks afterwards, but drafting the deck is a large portion of the fun. And realistically, a well-crafted draft deck will... I don't know if that's true. Like, if you draft really well, and you get the best deck at the table, you do absolutely have an advantage by definition. But are you likely to beat a better piloted, weaker pile? Obviously, it's contingent on the relative power levels. I've been thinking about that from an esoteric perspective a lot, Atona. Like, what is the fun part for me personally about card games? And I think what I usually go to is it's the Vorthos element, because I've had a lot of card game people ask me, like, why do you even play card games? Why don't you just play chess? And Phobies is a good example. Like, I want to play a game that has a Vorthos component to it. It's more fun to push around Cassowary and Bad Omen and Misanthrope on the board than it is to move pawns and rooks and knights. Even if you assume that they are very close in nature. And when you transfer it to card games, I enjoy, like Vader, Darth Vader was a deck that I played a lot last competitive season. It goes against everything that I typically like in card games. It is an extremely linear deck. It gets blown out by its hard counter. It's like playing Infect. But the thing is that I liked it because they're like the idea of creating this swarm of TIE fighters was fun in the abstract. And that I enjoyed. So, like, I like the customizability or the customization of card games insofar as they provide a unique Vorthos experience, not necessarily the deck building tweaking. Because I really, really hate meta calls. Because A, you could just, if you're wrong, and it's not even wrong on like, oh, I thought it was going to be 30% this stack, 20% this stack, 10, 15 for this, and blah, blah, blah. You could just get screwed by the matchmaker, and it's just flipping coins of like, did you play into those decks? You could have been perfect, spot on, and it doesn't matter because you didn't play those decks. And that feels exceptionally dumb. The thing I don't like about minis is the output variance. But I used to play, like, Mage Knight, which was the precursor to HeroClix. I honestly don't think I haven't seen HeroClix sold anywhere in, like, 15 years or more. I kind of assumed that it didn't exist anymore. I think the biggest thing for me, and this comes back to, like, Phobies will be the example here, is that I want, for me to have a meaningful gameplay decision, there needs to be a commensurate cost. That could be resources, tempo, whatever. Not opportunity cost as well. And there needs to be a commensurate influence on my opponent's decision-making as well, in order to qualify to me as interactive. Like, why is removal not interactive in a lot of people's minds? Because you always do that. Like, there's no real decision point. It's like, you played a guy, I kill the guy if I have the option to, and it's how my deck functions. And it's like, was there a decision made? Well, yes, technically, I could have decided to let you beat my face in with the thing you played. Or Phobies, like, oh, you played a mechanical. Well, what's my best electrical option? Do I have that? With Phobies, because of the way the costing works, a lot of it comes down to you need to prepare for, well, they could be setting this particular thing up, or they put this on the board, so now I need to respond in this way. They made a decision, so my decision now is impacted by theirs. When we're talking for, like, when we were going over some of the other stuff, your decision does not meaningfully change. It's like, you would have done this no matter what. It didn't matter what decision I made. Or in my case, like, if I was in the position of trying to debate between option A or option B, I would always do this, because that's always the thing that I would do. And I think for Magic especially, that has... I mean, I played Magic for 13 years, and admittedly, it was early on in the game's lifespan. People have learned, maybe Magic is very different now, but it does not feel like you always wait to activate an ability until the last possible window. Because you need to, you hope your opponent makes an error, or it locks you, depending on what the thing you're playing around, you locks your opponent out of particular things. But it feels like we are just elongating the process for the sake of proving that you're not a dummy. It's like we both know how this is going to play out. That's why a lot of players will end up... I mean, you don't typically do this in a tournament, but a lot of players will shortcut a lot of these things because it's like we know that this is going to happen, then you're going to do this, 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 because that is the correct thing to do. There isn't some special play, and yes, there is knowledge that has to be absorbed and learned to go from, I just started playing, to this is how I understand how the correct lines are. But playing around a counterspell, oh, you're blue and you have 2 islands untapped, you probably have a counterspell. Okay, well, I'll play my weaker card first in case you counterspell it. That is not materially different than if we had secrets that countered the first card you played. Other than you could decide to hold it, which either you have to do or you don't have to do. And that decision is already happening. The argument that it creates more decisions, technically, I mean, without getting into really complex scenarios, I would generally agree. I just don't think that those decisions are so much more important to then add the additional layers of complexity that are required, is what it boils down to. Are there more decisions? Sure. I'm not trying to say that there aren't, depending on what the circumstances are. And that's where we get into the specifics, and I'm trying to avoid specifics. So let's just say that there are more decisions if you have instants. I do not, and this is the point that I made from the beginning, is that you don't make more meaningful decisions because you will always do the specific thing. If you're the person holding the counterspell, it's I need to counter this thing or I don't. And either they're playing the thing first so I can counter it, or they don't, and then I have to decide whether I'm going to hit the thing or not. And I get we're taking a decision away from people in that circumstance. I don't think that decision that's being made there is meaningful. Now, that is specifically for counterspells. When you get into removal or something like that, it's even worse because you will always play that in the end step or always in declare attackers, and the decision is either that thing needs to die or it doesn't, and that decision could have been made on your turn. And I think that Carson and I just even kind of bowed out of the discussion of he disagrees. He feels that is a meaningful decision. I don't think it is. And I don't, there's no, I don't even know what would have to exist to convince me or convince him of the other position. I played too many games with instants to I've seen all the scenarios. So, I legitimately don't even know what would convince me of the other side. All right. We got arrombs. Arrombs. Let the best erratic win. As we continue. All right. We got stuff about dredge. I also missed, an earlier thing. Because we clearly... Oh, I think we covered that. Turns out dredge was exactly... What? Reminds me of a story of a PTQ I played in where I decided to play... Affinity, but part of me had this gut feeling that I should have played Flow Rock all the way up until the tournament. Playtesting couldn't beat a Dredge, which is why I decided against it. Turns out Dredge was exactly 2 decks in the tournament, and a guy playing Flow Rock won the PTQs. So I scared myself off the winning deck because of a meta that didn't exist that day. And it is one of the worst feelings I've had in card games. It is because that is just a different version of variance. It's no different than getting mana screwed. It is no different than getting mana screwed. Yeah, I agree that meaningful decision is not clearly defined. Like, I have an idea. I've used this turn of phrase a lot, but it's like when they tried to describe porn in the Supreme Court. It's like, I may not be able to describe it, but I know it when I see it. And in this particular case, like, I can point to a lot of things and go, yeah, that's a decision, but that isn't like, it doesn't actually change. I don't think the vast majority of card games have meaningful decisions the vast majority of turns. And I think most people would agree with it if I could articulate it the way it's in my head. So, like, for the Phobies people who are tired of hearing about this, you don't see anyone at the top level passing the first 3 turns and then spitting out a 9 key, right? Like, that doesn't happen outside of beams. And the reason that doesn't happen is because it's not the correct thing to do. You will lose the majority of the time doing that against an opposing competent player because you give up too much tempo. That is a decision that you made to not put a 9 key on the board by passing your first few turns. That is not a meaningful decision to me because it is, you know, like cursory level, I just learned how to play the game sort of thing. When it comes to card games, I am lumping a lot of, and don't get me wrong, like, as I said before, are there more decisions made with instants? Probably. And I say probably because I'm hedging my bets and blah, blah, blah. But I think that the games can be structured in such a way to capture, like, it's almost an 80-20 rule kind of thing, where, like, I will get the overwhelming majority of the decisions made in a game of Magic playing a game of Hearthstone. So anyway, back to the point. Summoner Wars is a deck-based dudes-on-board game where you draw guys, which is a tactical game I think you're looking for. Also, Mage Wars has dudes on a board but no deck, but does have cards. Instead, you have a spell book, which is like having a whole deck in your hand. Some of the things. Mage Wars. Have I looked at that? I know of Summoner Wars, and I vaguely remember hearing about Mage Wars, but I don't remember looking into that. I mean, that sounds like the ideal game. Phobies is the ideal game, and to be honest, I would not play card games any longer if Phobies had a meaningful tournament scene. And that's not to knock first-party tournaments that are going on or the other ones, but, like, I'm not going to put in hours and 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 hours of time for bragging rights. And I'm not saying I have to win millions and millions of dollars. You can't do that in card games outside of poker anyway. But, like, it kind of is about the prizes. Like, Phobies is not large enough for me to... Oh, we're going to get a heebie-jeebie special here. All right, we get the heebie-jeebie special into... Oh, actually, I thought we were going to get the chain for a second, but that's a great erratic hit. Is this a kill? Sick. Nice. It's funny you say that, Atona, because on the digital card games Reddit, I started using Reddit more because I have to post in certain places for content, obviously like the Phobies Reddit and stuff. So I just went and found some other Reddits, and like digital card games is one of them. Somebody's like, "What does a card game need to succeed?" Or well, that wasn't the. I forgot how the question was posed, but it was like, "What what do you want in card games that doesn't exist? I'm like, I want tournaments. They're like, do you think people would want that? I'm like, yes, people want this. There's not that many, but people want this. If there were tournaments for, like, I don't play, as much as I hate Magic, I'm considering playing it just because there is, like, you cannot dispute that there is a more entrenched and a more vibrant tournament scene for Magic the Gathering than there is for practically any other card game. Digitally, I'm saying. Even physically, you can make that argument. You could say how much Magic has shit on their professional scene and their competitive scene. It is still better than like 99.9% of the games out there. And the reality is I want to compete, so I've considered going back to Magic for explicitly that reason. I really don't want to. Also, I don't understand why Bad Guy put fucking Barzilla on the board, but sure. I think most games can't support tournaments, though. That's the problem. Like, we saw it with Mythgard. And this is a concern I have for the Phobies tournaments, for Phobies people that are listening to this and don't give a damn. Like, this matters. The management of tournaments is dramatic. Like, it is a non-trivial amount of effort to run, or to organize, to run, to pay out, and then advertise, and all the other pieces that are related to running an event. It's not easy. I have no idea whether that happened or not, Atona, to be honest. But I don't think most games can run a successful tournament scene because you just can't. They don't have the resources to run it. And we're not talking, oh, they don't have tens of thousands of dollars laying around to run tournaments. It's not just that. You need a person to run it. Anybody who's played in Fright Night or Monster of the Week or A Shriek or any of the other tournaments I've run, like, it is a non-trivial amount of effort for me to run these things. I need to take time away from my regular schedule to do this stuff. And I was doing it. And I did complain about it, but, like, the point is not, oh, well, you need to be able to do it without complaints or something. The point is you need to have someone who's willing to commit the time. And if it's from a first-party perspective, that means you got to pay someone. And if you're paying someone, it's now a cost. And again, not just prizes. Like, who's going to organize it? Who's going to advertise it? Who's going to be the person that everyone goes to when they inevitably have an idiot question? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And that assumes that there's even enough people to cobble together. I'm in like 12 different Discords right now for a bunch of different games that want to run tournaments. And they're like, well, what should we do? This or this? And all I can think is, it doesn't matter. You're going to have 4 people show up. So whatever the fuck they decide to do is what you're going to do. Because those are the people who showed up. It doesn't matter. And that's my concern for, like, Phobies, is that I don't understand what their plan is long term. I don't think the format is very good, but it is absolutely the simplest one that they could possibly run. It is not feasible for them to run a different format because now they need, like, what, a dedicated employee to herd all of these people who refuse to report their games or whatever. At least if it's single elim, everybody, like, you inherently understand how a single elim bracket works. If you showed up tomorrow and said, I don't understand how a single elimination bracket works, I'm going to go, say it louder and slower. Like, that's the response. What happens if my opponent doesn't show up? It's a single elimination bracket. What happens if I miss one of my games? It's a single elimination bracket. Well, what happens if it's a single elimination bracket? Like, that's the answer. When you get into other stuff, you need to start coming up with, oh, well, if this happens, and then this caveat, and then in this scenario, in a bunch of ifs. Here, it's just, you won or you lost. I guess technically you would have to figure out a scenario for if people in-game tie, which is possible. GG. Bad guy surrendered. Sorry, arrombs. We're on a rambling night. We are rambling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're only halfway through. We're going to be doing a lot of repeats. After we get through game number 6, though. Alright, dear H here on hold still. Tough game. Opponent started with an early Akira, but didn't quite planned it well. I'm telling you, I just read these as they're written. And, like, yeah. Tournament structure doesn't and shouldn't care about the ifs. But, I mean, it both does and should. Like, there's a lot of ifs. Even if you're in a physical real-life tournament, like, what happens if my opponent is not to the table on time? Well, if you're playing Swiss, you need to account for it, and then you go, okay, you get DQ'd or whatever, you get dropped. I'm being facetious about it's single limb, so it doesn't matter. By the way, we also just, as I was talking about, like, you don't just bank. We immediately have a game where people bank. You do have to account for these things, but then if the answer is you just get kicked out, that's the simplest answer, right? And it's also, like, in the single elimination bracket, it's very obvious who your next opponent is. Like, how, you don't have to worry about, oh, well, how does Swiss work? How do tiebreakers work? How does this happen? How does that happen? It's just, you play until there's only one person left. Like, that's it. That's a very early Akira yoink. I don't... Dude, what is Ryuk doing? Alright, I guess you snipe the, Alright, you get 3 free keys here. It's not really free because you're going to lose the cassowary due to the sarcasm, but then you get the counter kill, so that's 4. You're going to kill the AWOL one way or another, I think. Alright, jar. I guess we're not killing the AWOL. This is, like, a bizarrely aggressive Akira. Cupcake's surely going to push him back. mean, you might have been able... I guess you couldn't kill it with what you had, or you wouldn't have done the cupcake, but... that seems meaningless, because I assume our hero's Gravedigger is ready to go? I don't know, we'll see. So the early Akira was just like, yeah, and now Russell, I don't know. I don't hate it. It's just weird. And like, bad guy has a panic point advantage, but there isn't enough pressure here. This is not meaningful. To keep reusing the word. Alright, we do get the second Akira pull thanks to how early it came out and how early it was able to activate. Is Hematic dead? Probably just gonna get a spit here, right? Alright, this is a double hit. This might be enough. Oh, we're gonna kill the Murder Wing. Alright. The Muffin is out of position because of this. But the clock is on thanks to the Russell. Honestly, like... I don't know. I know there's a lot of Akira and Russell haters, myself included. Like, for my part, I don't mind the Russell as, like, a counter Akira. It seems fine, because then it's not just mindless repositioning. Of like, oh, well, let's just dodge here, dodge there, dodge there, dodge there, and you end up all the way back into the corner, and, like, it's a 40-turn game for no reason. The Russell forces the action to happen, which it kind of always does, but specifically in response to Akira, it doesn't feel as bad. Interestingly enough, Onion Boy is not active. This is pretty well played. I mean, really, Russell took over the game, right? Second he hits the board. How much health does, Yeah, I don't think that Noxious can kill you. Got Onion Boy active now. Gravedigger is out of range to help. I was going to say get on Onion Boy with like a broken block, but you can just move up, because I was thinking you'd want it. Like, ideally, you'd want Ogre to swing underneath the heart, so that way you could get, well, I guess it's the same amount of moves, probably. 2. It's about the same number of moves in order to reposition the way I was thinking, so it doesn't matter. But now we have a very angry ogre who's just in a race to try and take down the remaining Phobies. Never mind. It's not even going to be close. Not even close. GG. Well played. The early Akira goes down. Alright, we're only just past halfway through for tonight, because we spent a lot of time talking about other bullshit. Alright, we've cycled back around. We got another Painful Fate game, this time on like and subscribe. Speedola Brothers getting the spotlight once more. Been yapping a lot. Who is pinging me? What do these people want? Oh, it's because there's a Discord stream going on. So, like, there's people pinging me, telling me, hey, there's a Discord stream going on. Sorry, trying to clear stuff. Early Speedola, huh? Why not? Why not? Halfy dead to jar? Oh, you don't have enough keys. You've upset the Halfy. Dude, that thing is hitting for almost 700 damage. Alright, Halfy is angry. Significant chunk off that Speedola, and now you have Thunder Rocks in your face as well. Holy crap. Bad guy, like, all in on these electricals. Bad guy all in. Oh, man. I just had a thought. I think Netrunner is the only card game that I know of, or at least I can think of right this second, that uses an action system that has instants. I'm pretty sure they had instants. I know they had like responses because you could set traps, and they would be triggered under certain circumstances, and you had to pay for them when they happened. Alright, Gravedigger finally out for our hero, notably very late. Tell me this thing dies. Okay. I was going to say, if you're able to take down this erratic right here, that is just catastrophic for bad guy. They can't double hit here, can they? I don't know about that. I feel like you're dead. Is the... Oh, no, they get the ray. Okay. Excuse me. Bad guy with a fairly aggressive push. The positioning here is pretty good. 7 keys for our hero. Now we get the jar. The erratic out of the way is kind of a big deal. The other phobies are definitely good. It is going to be difficult to address some of these, but as always, Droney. Droney might be my most... We were talking about, like, coolest phobia earlier, and people commonly ask, what's your favorite phobia to me? I think Droney is my most hated phobia in the game. I hate that Droney trivializes Resurrect phobies. Most of the time, I think Resurrect phobies just get bodied regardless. You know, you just burn them down and then you have a spare 1 key or whatever. Even if they don't escape, it's like, okay, it's a 1 key, who cares? And it's not uncommon to just have something be able to walk in and walk back out. But man, I'm telling you, when Droney gets a kill on a Resurrect phobie, I die a little bit inside. Every time. Finally clear out the blocks. I imagine bad guy could actually put another one down. I can't believe these Speedolas lived through all those electricals. Like, that's actually kind of wild. The power of positioning, one might say. Dropping cards. I gotta, like, shift my brain back to more phobies focused stuff. We spent so much time talking about things that are tangentially related to phobies that I'm legitimately having some difficulty getting back into the phobies frame of mind. Because I keep thinking about, like, other parts of the other conversations. So I'm a little distracted. We have enough to get rid of this bad side? Oh, not enough. Close. We'll get to heal a bunch, probably get a kill on, like, the Gravedigger, but who cares? Very well played. The early Speedolas... I mean, I feel like bad guy had the tools. You had 3, 4 electricals on the board. You really just need to get one of them off the table, so that way the other one is permanently crippled, and it's just not going to do anything meaningful. But they didn't do that. Our hero able to take it down. GG. Well played. All right. Just a few more chat, and then we'll decide. No, it's getting late. We're not going to argue about their stuff tonight, because I'll look at it in the morning. I'm too tired. ScorpioAstro, did you favorite this game? My guess is no. We already know, because this is the person from earlier. You submitted 2 games against the same opponent. Goon and Jeeves, probably the best, one of the best combos I've made yet. Jeeves is the best walrus ever. Those games, not on your profile. This one is, though. All right, one of the few favorited games on ScorpioAstro's profile. Gotta favorite your games. People, I can't find them. No notes. Here on Magnificent. Goon cutting off the snowball retreat. I think one of the last games that I played on Magnificent, I did do something like this, like what Bad Guy's doing, where I I went for the overextension with the snowball, but I didn't follow up with Noxious. So, bottom line is it got overextended. I ended up losing the snowball kind of for free, and then as a result, I went on to lose the game because it was just such a massive resource loss. Not specifically the keys. I mean, that matters. That's good blom there. But more in terms of the snowball would have had much more utility through the rest of the game. All right, Scorpio. I don't know about sheep here, but I guess we'll go with it. What do we got here? A little Clinico action. I guess, sure. Goon presumably is going to retreat. You're not really in position to supplement this unless you just want to suicide him in, which doesn't seem like a good usage. Honestly, excuse me, if you can get a couple more bombs, like, you're probably in good shape. Another Boo Fairy. Did Boo Fairy get buffed? Did card games with extra zeros for no reason bother you? Yes. The ones where I mean, the zeros are probably the simplest way to describe it, but, like, it's big number for the sake of big number. Like, the granularity, there's no leveraging the granularity. And to be honest, in those games, I think it would actually be to the detriment of them if they did try to leverage the granularity. So, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Something has 10,000 attack value. I don't know, I'm making up a number. Well, if you had 6,437 attack value, that would obviously be better or worse than pick another number. But having weird numbers and requiring you to then, unless it's a direct comparison, and even then it's just annoying to have to do. I know it's not difficult for anyone who's past, like, first grade math. Maybe even kindergarten math. Like, which number is bigger? I don't know at what level, offhand, like, does a kid go from knowing, like, just having a larger looking number physically. Like, some numbers are wider, so it's like, oh, well, that number is physically larger, but it may be lower because, like, hopefully, I don't know how else to describe it. We're also getting off track. By the way, the Goon, this is what I was getting at earlier. Like, even with the poison, if you get another Blom, you can just heal it up. Dual Masters the same way. I don't think any card I've seen has a floating 5, which means Dual Masters could have 3 zeros removed for everything. I think there were 5s, but that's the extent of it. And even then, you could do, like, 10, 15, 20. You don't have to have thousands. It's very much the Dragon Ball Z thing, which I think is explicitly why those games have those number values. It does kind of bother me because it's just silly. Like, you just literally don't need it. And you could even do a large number or comparatively large number by just doing hundreds. It doesn't have to be thousands. And if it's thousands, why isn't it millions? Because there's too many zeros? Like, I don't know. It just seems dumb. If it was valuable granularity, because I've done this in different contexts before when designing games, I'm a kind of obsessed with action-based economies instead of, like, we'll call them land economies, like Magic or WoW or something. Like somewhere you put a card down, and this is a resource. I like the idea of just, you have 3 actions a turn. But the problem is granularity. How do you differentiate between, well, you could have something cost 1 action, 2 actions, 3 actions, but what if you have just numbers, like costs? You could have a 1 cost card, you could have a 9 cost card, you could have a 4 cost card, you could have a 50 cost card. Aside from the fact that the numbers just inherently are easy to grok and it's a sliding scale, there comes a time where, like, this is the 3rd Blom, by the way, you can only have so much granularity when your costs are 0 to 3 versus if your costs were 0 to 50. Or your attack values, or your health values, or whatever the number in question is. If you're limiting them, you inherently have less, right? And you could add additional costs, but you could always do that with a cost-based game, too. It's like, as an additional cost, this costs 1 action. It's an additional cost to discard a card. Okay, well, you could have had it cost 3 and also discard a card. So, like, me trying to figure out how to have action-based games ends up being like that's the common problem. And pretty much every action-based game like Netrunner or Arkham or some of these other things, they have a secondary economy where it's like it's credits or dollars or whatever the game's other thing is, so that it's like an RTS where you have gold or minerals, but then you also have wood or Vespane gas. And that's the real limiting factor on higher tech things. In these games, like in Netrunner, you'd have to spend credits in addition to some number of actions to play a card. Well, you get actions back every turn, but you have to generate credits through other effects or other actions, and then they have an associated cost. So really, it's a multi-step process to do the same thing, but it's either that or you have no granularity, and it's a conundrum that I have not been able to solve in a satisfying way, because I don't think there is a solution. We're trying to square peg round hole it. Or I am, not we. And it's just like, how do I make a rectangle with only 3 sides? Well, you don't. That's a triangle. Game time. Enemy game expired. I think our hero is winning this one. We did see, I don't know if it was from Scorpio, but we had somebody else's game expire. And that other one did not look as clean as this one, but GG. We're now in game design philosophy territory. We kind of have been. We'll do that one. So that means we can actually finish up with a Scorpio game and another chicken game. What the hell was that? My spreadsheet flipped out for a second. All right. Scorpio, back once again. Still no notes, but at least this game was favored at center stage. Not a fan of this map. Yeah, I don't know. I can't... I don't think there is a way other than introducing an additional economic element to... Did we look at this game? We looked at this game, didn't we? Because the Unbearable... Yeah, we looked at this game. Hold on. Hold, please. 721. I think this game was just submitted twice, because it is actually on the spreadsheet twice. The dates match. The bad guy name matches. And there aren't any others. So we're only going to get 9 games tonight, because I'm going to... I don't have another one on here. So we're just going to mark that one. And we'll go to chicken. Oh, man. Are we really... Come on. Favorite your games, people. even see this one on here. What the fuck? Dude, this one's not even on your profile, and you do have hold on. What? Alright. So we're supposed to be looking for an opponent that's Ghost 11047. There are no favorited games. So this one's from 9-1. Oh, here it is. Okay, I was looking at the wrong line. I was looking at the wrong date. All right, we got it. All right, chat. Rugged Footing Chicken, once again, our hero. What are the notes of this one? He didn't expect the triple sheep. Wait, what? Triple sheep? What are we talking about? There's only 2 sheep in the game. Only 2 sheepies. Triple sheep surprise. That sounds like a really bizarre dish at a fancy restaurant. Maybe not a fancy restaurant. It's probably like a restaurant that just opened up and tries to project the idea that they are fancy, but it's actually ass. And it just overcharges you and then says, look how fancy we are because of how expensive our triple sheep surprise is. And you go in and it's just like this oatmeal ass looking bowl of shit. You just go into a fancy restaurant and then you order the triple sheep surprise and they straight up hand you a bowl of oatmeal. Let's make it a note here, chat. What one was that? Oh no, that was the wrong thing. That was the wrong thing. My bad. Anyway. I think one issue with the whole instant discussion... I don't know if Tona's still here. Oh, that's a pretty good noxious hit. One issue with the whole instant discussion here is... I don't know that there is a completely asynchronous turn, as in no instance game, that exists today that does not have some weird bullshit attached. I guess Star Wars Unlimited is the best example, because there aren't instants in that, but everything is technically an instant because you play a card and then immediately pass priority to your opponent. There's no counter spells, but technically anything could be a counter spell because you, like, if we're playing and I pass and I leave up resources, it could be I have a guy that has ambush, ferocity, or haste for people playing other games, and then I could use that to kill your guy that you just played or something like that. Or I could just play a removal card, but there aren't cards that say, like, interrupt a card, it can't be played. Star Wars Unlimited is like a simplified L5R. I've never played that game. My understanding is that it was very complex, but... and there's technically 2 of them. But, like... I don't think that there's a good... because one of the things I was just thinking of, and the reason why I said I don't know if there's a good example of an asynchronous game that isn't saddled with bullshit. Like, Hearthstone is an asynchronous game. You cannot play cards on your opponent's turn. Secrets Withstanding, which, you know, that's not the important part. Hearthstone is an asynchronous game, but there isn't any... there's too much bullshit in that game. The question is... and I guess Mythgard would have been a good example if it stuck around. But again, we're trying to kind of comparing apples and oranges because that game wasn't around long enough with enough cards to really let it get into its stride. What is the win rate for a player in an asynchronous game versus the win rate for a player in a quote-unquote synchronous game, like Magic or WoW? Because the best of the best in Magic have like a 60, somewhere in the 60s win rate, which is kind of sad. But Magic is also saddled with its own variance bullshit. The WoW TCG, I imagine, had a much higher win rate. Like, the best players would win virtually all the time. And when I'm not arguing about whether that's good or bad. Personally, I think it's good. A lot of people would say it's bad. That's a different discussion. My argument has always been, and I think that was part of my frustration with some of these discussions, is it kind of gets off topic very quickly when we get into the weeds with specific, like, oh, well, what about this scenario? I think that you can have a deep game without... Bad Guy no way saw this coming. That was a great poll. Great setup with that. Like, I think you can have a deep game with completely asynchronous turns, where you cannot interact on your opponent's turn. I think the counter-argument from everybody that I'm discussing it with, without putting words in their mouth, is that, no, it will always be better with better being a deeper game with synchronous turns. My counter-argument is, even if that is true, I think the trade-off in simplicity is worth it. Like, again, I think it's an 80-20 thing, probably more than that, but you can get the majority of the complexity and depth, namely the depth. The whole point is to avoid the complexity with asynchronous stuff as you can with synchronous stuff. You will miss out on some, but I think that a lot of the synchronous depth is complexity with glasses and a mustache. I've never even heard of orbs. The original L5R was one of the greatest games ever. The reboot was pretty lackluster because they simplified real. I don't think, like, very few games in the 90s were asynchronous. I think there were some, but not many. They were, like, responsive. The opponent has a character with X trade, do Y to a character before Z character enters. So they were more... Oh, yeah, hyper-specific counterspells, yeah. I don't know exactly how it plays, but Tom Martell helped design the game, then removed his name from it entirely. I don't know who Tom Martell is. That name doesn't ring any bells. Well, it kind of does, but I couldn't tell you who they are. Oof. Lots of damage. This was kind of a beatdown from Chicken here. Sorry, Chicken. Sometimes we get off on tangents. But GG. Well played. And that, my friends, is the entire queue. It's the entire queue. That is what we did tonight. I'm back next week. Probably be playing Gears tomorrow. Hopefully my PC... I do need to test it, playing Gears specifically, because that was when I started to see it overheat. It wasn't constant, but it was kind of annoying. Like, it's been at a fairly steady 50 degrees Celsius, which, considering how low intensity OBS and Phobies is, like, it probably shouldn't even be that hot. I don't know. We'll see. That's going to do it for tonight. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time for more Random Thoughts.